Welcome to Andromeda 7, your celestial gateway, your channel for community support, help, friendship, love, knowledge, and being of value. Welcome back. If you're new to the channel.
Whoa, we got some high wind coming through here. We can't hear you, Lori. There's a wind coming in there. Yeah, there you go. Sorry, Jules. She's got some hurt. She's got some strong wind there.
Wind going on there, boy.
Well, we couldn't hear you, but that's okay.
That came in like a roaring.
Yeah.
Here. Okay.
That's a hurricane.
Well, greetings to Jules from Australia. That wind is still pretty strong, Jules. Just keep it muted until we're ready to.
I gotcha.
Pop you on.
That's.
Hi, Dalibor. Welcome from Germany. And to all our listeners out there who aren't in the chat room, welcome. We're glad you're here, and thank you for continuing to support the program. So tonight, let's see, we have Elderberry. Hey, Barry brother, how are you? Squirrel buddy, good to see you. Ann Allen, welcome. Grandpa Brian, 420. You're getting ready to head off to the cabin soon. Safe travels, brother. Have a great weekend with your family. No, your friends. That's right. He's having a spiritual retreat at his place.
That's awesome. I wish
Blessings
I could go.
to you and your friends. Yeah. Let's see, who else do we have? We have Fire Spirit Girl 13.
And
Hi, sweetheart.
David Castle.
David Castle. And we have Karen, Queen of Quartz, back from her mining operations up north of Canada. Welcome back, Karen. Good to see you, sister. Glad you're safe and sound.
Mandy Moo's in the house. Hi, Mandy. It's a pleasure to have you with us. It's good to see you.
Hi, Mandy. There's your sister, Kelly.
Yep. Hey, Kel. What you doing? Witch Moon 73. Good to see you as well.
Yeah.
True Seeker. Always a pleasure. Thank you for being here.
Dougster. Good to see you, Doug.
Dougie.
Dougie boy. And Ken. Hi, Ken. How you doing, Ken? What else we got here? You got David. And Gaza Kov. Gaza, good to see you.
Oh, and of course, Lucky Stone. Lucky, it's good to see you. Thanks for dropping in. Appreciate you.
Hope our friends in Australia are faring well. I know that Gaza said he's holding the line, whatever, against his employers. So hopefully things will get better there soon.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, that's about it for now.
I did tell Rocky and Ron, thank you so much for the abnormal realities. Petey.
Oh, yeah. The Petey ornament.
Yeah. Really cool. They signed the back for me. That's really
cool.
Nice. Yeah. Romika Designs over there. If you follow Abnormal Realities, go check it out. But I got my Petey.
And go join their raffle for that large framed I Want to Believe poster. There's a raffle going on for that right now.
Yes,
until the end of December. For every $1 you donate, they match it. And then if you do it as a monthly donation, a regular monthly donation, they double the match up.
Nice.
So that's pretty cool. Pretty cool what they've got going on there. Yeah. All righty. And then Crystal, by the way, she has some new soaps out, some Halloween soaps.
Oh, I did see some of those. Those are great. Yeah.
Pretty awesome. So she could use some Halloween orders for anybody that wants to get some gifts going there. And new lures from Wayfinder Lures and new products from Marsha. Marsha did a gorgeous pyramid.
Really?
With, the wolf. She took Deborah's wolf, who passed away recently, and put the wolf in the pyramid. And it's just gorgeous. If you go to her Facebook page at Marsha's Inspirations, you'll see the wolf
wonderful
pyramid. And it's a wonderful idea. I'd like to get one with Nugget. You know, it's pretty cool. So doing some excellent work, all these folks, you know. Which reminds me, it is coming on the holidays.
Yes, it is.
So what better way to spread the love by ordering your products from your own Soul Tribe family members? I mean, there's so many folks out there selling products now, and they're all on Queen of Quartz Network. And Karen's going to be updating it again soon. But there's folks out there with all kinds of products to sell, from soaps and fishing lures to all kinds of spiritual products and tools. So give your Soul Tribe members an uplift, help them grow their business, and spread the gift of love and inspiration to everybody else.
It's awesome.
So did you want to tell them about what we're going to do here? Or?
You are.
I am?
Yes,
okay.
you are.
Ours?
We've been going a year too, haven't we, girls and Guy?
Yeah.
Yes.
This
celebration.
Actually, the end of this month marks our first year anniversary as a show.
Didn't we do it on the 7th of October?
No. What we did is we went on
November?
to Wayne's for a launch.
September.
Yeah, and then in the last, like the third week of October, we went live.
Yep.
And so we're celebrating our first year this month. So that's
it's hard to
cool.
believe it's gone by already. It sure went fast, didn't it? Like a blink of an eye.
And for a while there, we were doing 2 shows a week, you know, because we had the Wednesday night workshops and specials, and we had to get balance in there with our family and everything else. But we have a lot of shows out there.
Yeah,
on
we
the
do.
Books,
Hard to believe. Let's see, we're
Yeah.
somewhere around the 80 show mark, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rocky's in the house. Hey, Rocky.
Hi, Rocky.
She was just showing your
Got
ornament.
your PD. Well,
And don't lick it. He already licked it.
lick it, baby. There you are.
Yep. So anyway, he's got some brand new lures, and you can make arrangements to put a gift pack together for the holidays. That's a great way to gift the man in your life. The men in your life. Jules's men are going fishing for a whole week, right?
Ooh, nice.
Yep. They just left this morning. There's 13 of them gone to Fraser Island, which is the largest sand island in the world. It's about an hour or so away, and they take about, depends on the weather and how the sand is, because the sand becomes like a highway. Not that you're allowed to speed on it, but they go up, and then if it's rained a bit, they can get across the dunes easy enough to get to the campsite. So,
nice.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
Well, what we're going to cover tonight, Lori and I've been talking, and we've both been going through a major transformation, if you will, or major reintegration. And a lot of people in the spiritual community are getting more visions, more dreams. They're experiencing that more of a direct connect now, not only with parts of self, but also angelic beings and others, and getting downloads and messaging and technologies and automatic writing, remote viewing. All these things are coming into play, and I don't know about the rest of the folks out there, but I've been getting bombarded for the past several weeks, and it's been a whole paradigm shift for me, to the extent that I now get it. I get the big picture, you know, and I understand now the true meaning behind, you know, you look within inside yourself, you see the love and respect inside yourself, and when you do that and the next person does it, well, then they see themselves in you, and you can see yourself in them. So it really gives you that feeling of the one body, the unity. And a lot of it has to do with reintegration. So tonight we have a little video. And what I did is I took this process that Lori and I have gone through, and many others, I'm sure, in the community have gone through a similar process. But I tried to put it into a framework that we could follow tonight, of putting it into phases. There seems to be generally different phases, and they're not linear. Although it'll look like that in the slideshow, but they're not linear. It's a very cyclical process. And it's not only cyclical in our current life, here in this manifestation, but in previous lives too, if you happen to believe in reincarnation and you believe in that you've lived before in other lifetimes, working through the reintegration of yourself and repairing whatever karmic debts there are, or going through any kind of dark night of the soul for the lessons that you're learning in those lifetimes, they're all coming together. And so then you enter the next lifetime and you go through the process all over again here. So it's cyclical throughout time as we as humans put it.
Yeah.
And then here you'll find, well, I already went through the dark night of the soul. I've been through phase one. And now I feel more advanced. And then all of a sudden you get triggered, not triggered, but something comes up.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to call them triggers. They're deliberate nudges from our guides saying, hey, you need to take care of this, because this is something down deep within inside of you and you need to deal with it and bring it out. And you're like, oh, wow, I haven't even thought of that. So you're constantly going through a cleaning, but you're getting stronger and stronger as you go. So what we did is we laid it out into 3 phases. Lori put it together in a video for us, took it all together. And we're going to play that for you just to give you an orientation. And then we're going to open it up to the panel to discuss their own experiences with each one of these phases. And folks in the chat room can join in as well. We just thought it would be a good idea, because sharing our stories about how these things work is what will help open people up and will help people to go, hey, well, wow, that happened to me and I didn't see it for what it really was.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's going on here, is people are getting nudged and they don't know they're getting nudged. Or somebody or something is trying to reach out to communicate, and they just don't see it or hear it or understand it or believe in it till it actually happens and they recognize it.
Mm-hmm.
So hope that wasn't too long-winded.
No, not at all. All
so
right.
You want to play the video and let them...
I can do that. Yeah, you bet. It's a short video, everyone, and it's narrated. So just enjoy the video, and then we'll discuss
Lori's
it after.
Voice.
Okay. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Carl Jung. 3 phases of reintegration. Phase 1, awareness and self-compassion. 3 phases of reintegration. Recovering from self-contaminant strategies. The reintegration of fragmented parts of self created for our own self-preservation, defense, and protection from past experiences and traumas that might trigger undesirable behaviors. Ownership of empathy for self, an epiphany and awakening. We are not these intense emotions, nor the judgment of them. Practicing self-love and release. Phase 2, compassion to integration. Connecting to our higher self as a passionate observer. Healing comes from balancing of the extremes, an internal dialogue of acceptance and compassion. This requires access to some part of self, a witness to be able to watch our thoughts and emotions without becoming them. This is practicing mindfulness. Self no longer has a reason to be polarized or amplify emotions. It calms and synchronizes. It trusts our own core. We call this meeting our inner child with love, compassion, and acceptance. We experience freedom and acceptance simultaneously, and internally knowing we are connected to a higher self. This opens us up to connectivity and communication with others and higher realms. Phase 3, relearning technologies to connect. We inherently and intuitively know there are laws that govern the universe. we understand throughout the ages as evidence in many historical sacred texts and teachings that humanity has continued to set these laws into creative motion through thoughts, intentions, prayers, voices, and varied beliefs. These are the technologies that connect us with various aspects of self, to each other and to source energy. We continue to relearn how to apply them, always for the greater good. Mediumship technology enables us to connect with others, with spirits, guides, angels, deceased persons, and other beings. Clairvoyance or clear seeing, visions, spirits, pictures, objects, beings, past lives, other timelines or dimensions, remote viewing, claircognizance or clear knowing, clairaudience or clear hearing, hear voices or thoughts, clairsentience or clear sensing, impressions and sensations, clairsentience or clear feeling, physical ailments and emotions. As spirits of source energy in human form, we are responsible for creating good, true, and beautiful things, mostly all of which we desire to experience. On the flip side, however, we are also responsible for creating that which we do not desire to experience. We are co-creators with Source, and the quality of thoughts, beliefs, and intentions will determine and manifest our new world reality. This happens on an individual regeneration basis, as well as a collective conscious thought through reintegration of all our parts within, with others, and with Source. There is so much more work to do in a world steeped in chaos and confusion. Those of us who are on the path, armed with knowledge of Source attributes and laws, and armed with love and goodwill in their hearts, will step up to do that work. Reintegration of many is necessary to put these concepts into practice in any lifetime, particularly in this troubled world of today.
Yep.
Thanks,
Thank
Laurie.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good overview. So let's talk about this first phase that so many have gone through. I know I started it like a couple of years ago. And most of the folks in our spiritual community are far along enough now to have done a lot of that deeper inner work. But what does it mean to you when we say meet our inner child? Why is that such an important first step for reintegrating? And why do we need to reintegrate in the first place? And what I get out of it is, until you've brought all those different aspects of yourself back into coherency and balance,
kind of like alignment, huh?
It's an alignment, because human beings, and Karen can speak to this because she's got a background in psychology as well.
Mm-hmm.
Human beings have
Kelly
the
does
great
too.
and Kelly,
Mm-hmm.
they know we have a great capacity to compartmentalize parts of ourselves in different pieces, different fragments, in order to control our response to situations that might trigger us or cause us pain, anxiety, and frustration. And those who suffer from post-traumatic stress do exactly that. And there are others who do it naturally as a defense mechanism for anything in life that makes them uncomfortable. We tend to compartmentalize pieces of ourselves into different realities, if you will. And we call upon them when we need them, or we push them away. And so many of us live fragmented lives and don't even realize it.
Mm-hmm.
But that is really part of what spirit is doing as well. The spirit is residing within us in this human form. Spirit doesn't necessarily remember things that happened in previous lives, but in this lifetime, spirit is helping us, our spirit, working in conjunction and in tandem with our human side to help protect us from harm that we might cause to ourselves. And what happens is it gets overwhelming, and certain aspects of these fragments take over. they cause addictions, other types of behavior that land us into all kinds of problems. And codependencies will ensue in a family unit going through that. So going through this first phase is really realigning yourself, parts of your own self, bringing those fragments back together, because when they're separate and they're out of control and they're not in balance, it doesn't leave you open to spiritual growth and development, or connecting with higher powers within yourself, or even with what people call God or Source or Great Spirit. So how are you not going to, how are you going to grow or develop if you haven't done the work? So what does it mean to connect with your inner child and do the work? It's the first question.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if I can start, I would say take the simplest approach. How would you go about doing this in, say, mathematics? Very easy. In mathematics, if you have a complicated equation, you try to set one half of it or one of the variables to zero. Okay, what do the variables look like when you set them to zero? Okay, then you can solve for the other variables. In physics, there's a thing called 0 point. Okay, how do you find the 0 point? Well, you take a space, you put it in, you enclose it in like a glass capsule. You take out all the air, take away all the light, take away all the pressure, and that's the 0 point. But when you take everything away, there's still something left, and that is the 0 point of energy. So that you can apply that to your own personality as well. When you take away everything about your personality, what's left? When you take away all your activities, all your hobbies, all your friends, everything, what is left but your own soul? That is the 0 point from which everything else emanates.
Yep.
Let's say you're in a situation like say exile or jail or something like that. I've felt that way for most of my life, because don't forget, I've been an immigrant all my life, in one country or another. So when you take away all those the feelings of security and connection and everything like that, what's left? Well, that's the inner strength. That's the 0 point from which everything springs.
Interesting you should say that, 0 point, because I had so many different things wrong that I didn't know where to begin. I didn't know what was causing me to feel the way I was feeling. And so for me, 0 point was one major traumatic event. But there's all these other things around that. But just starting somewhere, what keeps me up at night? What makes me feel bad? What are the secrets that I want to keep that I don't want to talk about? What are the things that I hide and mask from other people?
The onion skin. The layers.
The layers and layers. And you got to start somewhere. So I started with the single most traumatic thing that triggered me and dealt with it, faced it head on. And I actually followed some guidelines to sit down and just close my eyes and talk about what it is that's bothering me. And through that process, I had a little breakdown, like a child. And I said, okay, that's the child within me responding to that. And so I started having conversations with a younger version of myself when I was that age, going through what I went through. That's a way of connecting with your inner child. And I have since then had conversations with in other words, you become big brother or big sister to the child that was within you that went through all these early things. And as you get more used to talking with that child, you learn to love that child, because the child hasn't had anybody to really listen to them. They haven't gotten the caretaking that they needed, or maybe they've had counseling, but it wasn't the right kind. But you become a counselor to your inner self, your younger self. And then all of a sudden you start hearing thoughts from something that's older than you, has more wisdom than you. And eventually, towards the end of that phase of dealing with these different things and talking to your inner child, you start hearing the thoughts of your higher self,
Mm-hmm.
who's also your counselor.
Your biggest fan.
Your biggest fan and your biggest supporter. So it's
Yep.
not just that you're embracing that child and hugging that child and giving that child love. You've looked and see in my notes there on the slides, it's an epiphany, an awakening. We are not these intense emotions nor the judgment of them. So it's a lot of letting go of judging yourself.
Yeah.
And how can you when you're looking at a child?
It's really difficult to not judge yourself, let alone, I mean, it's easy to judge others, but man, when it comes to you.
So you find yourself nourishing that child
Mm-hmm.
because you weren't given that nourishment when you were growing up or didn't know how to accept it if you were. But the point is that all these emotions, you eventually, as you're working through, and it's very emotional. It's very draining very emotional, dealing with your inner self.
A lot of releasing and letting go. Getting rid of the cords and attachments to the things that you're used to, all that programming, reprogramming your mind, being able to let things go, not let things bother you. What's right about the situation, as Jules always says. And I always default to that saying, and I love it.
Yeah.
Works well.
Programming.
Programming
is definitely an aspect of it, but few people realize that the oldest programming language on Earth is actually drugs. Drugs is like the first programming language when you think about it. Whether those drugs are exogenous, coming from outside, like a plant or a pill or something like that, or something you create in your own brain, and those serve as creating models for like future behaviors. So let's say you were a child, as you were saying, you were traumatized. You associate some things with that trauma, so you stay away from those triggers in the future. So there's ways of getting rid of that. Like I had one thing that I got rid of, and that was a fear of dogs, because when I was 9 years old, I was bitten by one, and I got some disease from that, and I had to get many injections, and I was sick for many weeks. So I was afraid of dogs ever since I was like 9 years old, but I got rid of that using NLP. Yeah, using NLP. So if you just look up NLP, it'll pretty much.
Where's that coming from? That's our video from last week. It's playing.
No idea.
Pretty snappy. It's pretty snappy, whatever it was.
Snappy. Oh,
we're just video from
full of
last
stuff
week
today, aren't we?
Well, you've been going through some software upgrades and some hardware
Yes,
upgrades, so it's a little tricky what you've been going through.
Sorry,
but anyway, that's okay. Yeah, right, NLP. And the other thing is, Lucky Stone was just saying it a few seconds ago.
I wanted to comment on that. Learning to make your shadow self your friend opens up so much. And really, here's what he's triggered on this, is that you're getting to know self better than you ever have. And once you know yourself, you know more what you're capable of. This is the thing that going inside is, you're learning more and more about who you are and what makes you you, and why you do the things you do, the programming, the traumas and things that you experienced as a child or as an adult, and how they shape you. But when you're doing this, you learn how to reshape yourself into something bigger and better than you were. And then you get to know who you are, and then things shift and change because you're in a different mindset.
Definitely.
And that's the hard part. That's the part that's difficult to get to. And it takes a lot of work, time and energy, a lot of journaling, a lot of really getting to know yourself. Why did you go through the things you went through? Why did I choose the parents I chose?
Yeah, it was a craving, though. Once I did it,
I couldn't stop.
I couldn't stop. It's like, okay, now what's the next nut I want to crack?
Yeah.
I really want to get to know myself. And you know what I found out?
What's that?
Pretty cool person.
Yeah, no doubt.
I mean, there were aspects that weren't so cool, but for the most part.
But you could change that. That's the whole thing is you've changed that part of you. And people that know you are like, not sure what's going on with you, but something's definitely different.
Well, it transforms you from the inside out. You start looking better. You start feeling better.
Mm-hmm.
You walk a little differently. You're motivated differently. You know, with me, it was weight and exercise because of my accident. So my body was banged up, but I started caring more about my body.
Mm-hmm.
And I was taking more selfies, you know, because I was like, oh, my face isn't all that bad because I had all this surgery. So I had all this, you know, cringe, you know, but once you start having regular conversations with yourself, and a lot of psychoanalysts will say, this is really bad, you know, what are you, you know, people who misunderstand psychology, they think you're acting like you're schizophrenic or something. And that's not it. It might look that way if they see you actually verbally talking to yourself, but the truth of the matter is that you're getting to know every aspect of that person, and getting to know to love them.
Yeah,
loving and nurturing.
Accept yourself. That's really difficult for a lot of people. But how do you put 3 years of solid work day in and day out into verbalizing it? It's really difficult because it's little bits and pieces each and every day, changing who you are, changing how you think, connecting with spirit, connecting to angels and guides and all that factor. And you're sitting here going, did that really just happen? Is this real? Yeah, it's real. It's
just a real quick break here to say hello to Claudette and Max and Michelle. Welcome, Michelle
Julie.
and Max. Julie Straw is here too. And Ruth, you know, Ruth Noble.
Ruth Noble. Hi, Ruth.
Good to see you. Yeah. So that's the first phase, and it's never, like I said before, don't think of this linearly, because you're going to go back. And it's good to every now and then, at least once a month, I sit down with my inner child. Is there anything else you want to tell me? Or how do you feel about how things are going? And I let it go for 2 months once, and my inner child was quite upset with me. Felt abandoned. You said you would never leave me. It's like, ooh, what is it you want to talk about? And so there are things that are still deeply rooted and deeply seated, because remember, we're really, really good about compartmentalizing and putting things in the farthest, darkest corners of our soul.
Well, we do that in society too, with things like science. Science is the best example of compartmentalization I can think of, because you have this science, that science. That's a psychological phenomenon. That's a mathematical phenomenon, and that's a paranormal phenomenon. Except that now we're beginning to see that it's not really all that clear cut. That for example, that some of the visions that some of these so-called schizophrenics were having are actually pretty much what's going on right now.
Yeah.
You know, so that's and for somebody who hasn't been studying it as long as I have, that comes as kind of a crazy revelation. But
where I make the difference, the differentiation I make with schizophrenia and reintegration is that with schizophrenics, they take it another whole step further. Where they start verbalizing and acting out with forms that take place. So inner parts of themselves have now manifested as a physical person, as a friend or a character or another part of their personality in physical form, and they actually think they're interacting physically with that individual. So they're actually manifesting in their own way a physical being. And they'll do things, place objects with them, and so that's how you can kind of tell. I mean, I've sat on buses with them as my passengers and watched them doing the hand gestures and going through the entire conversation with a part of themselves that's actually, they don't even recognize it as a part of themselves. They recognize it as a completely different kind of character. If you've ever watched the movie Beautiful Mind.
That's the compartmentalization.
Yeah, creating the different characters. Right. Right. So anyway, so that's one phase. And like I said, you'll be revisiting. As you go through these phases, you'll still have tentacles or chain or connections, and they're not bad tethers. They're actually good because it's part of pulling you along that integration path, reintegration path. So the second phase that we started talking about was how when you go from that from compassion to full integration. So now you've learned how to look at what's not you emotionally. You've learned to step outside of yourself and look at all aspects of yourself. You're pulling yourself back together. And now you move on to connecting to your higher self. So first you were talking to your child. Now you're more open to talk to your higher self. And so what do we mean by the higher self? It says here in my notes, I put down healing comes from balancing of extremes and internal dialogue of acceptance and compassion. So now I've got a big sister or an older brother in my mind that I can meet with and say, how did you get to where you got to in terms of your development? And here's where I am. And then you start getting the messages. And so writing down and journaling or even channeling your own inner higher self. And that's what I started doing.
Yeah.
Well, the question is like, if you say ingest certain substances, like say alcohol, does that release your higher self, or does that suppress your higher self? Does that open up the child within you, or does it actually suppress the child within you? Because see, a lot of people, unbeknownst to themselves, are actually using alcohol as a meditative technique, or as like I said, a programming language. Same way that people use other substances.
Well, couldn't that be because it's a matter of old programming that they think the only way to do that is to use those substances, when in fact they actually have the inner strength to do it without the substances? So aren't they creating another dependency or a unhealthy, perhaps codependency to get them to that level?
It's a more complex question than it seems. You know why? Because first of all, we're seeing an uptick in various forms of addiction, and it's not just substances. It's also online games, stuff like that. Video games. But pretty much the whole modern addiction phenomena started when government got involved. When government said, "Okay, this is a problem that we have to regulate, so we're going to make it illegal to own certain substances or to use certain substances." So that put people in a whole different mindset. Like, okay, this is forbidden, therefore this must be good, or it's forbidden, therefore it must be fun, or something like that. So for people. Because I myself went through my own alcoholic phase. I mean, I was suffering from that affliction for many, many years, and trust me, it was hell.
So what did you get out of all those years of that addiction?
Pretty much nothing. And the fact that I accomplished anything at all is pretty much a miracle. Back then when I was in the throes of it, I thought to myself, oh, I'm probably not that successful. I'd be more successful without it. But even that was just an excuse. Even that was a crutch for a crutch. Because, when I quit 3-4 years ago, I didn't become, instantly more successful, instantly became a better person, because I was ascribing all my shortcomings and all my limitations on just that alcoholism. And I was saying, once I get rid of that, I've solved all my other problems, but I haven't, not including physical ones like the insomnia, things like that.
Right. And I might say, Lucky, that asking questions about could have, would it mean, or could it mean does not mean I'm expressing my perception and judging somebody. It's just an inquiry that I was making. And that is that some dependencies, because I was strongly dependent on alcohol. And I thought if it relaxed me, I could chill out and just take it easy. But for me, on my journey, it ended up causing me more problems. It ended up convoluting it and making me compartmentalize myself even more so. It's not going to be the same for everybody.
Yeah.
But that's what it was for me, and many of us in the Soul Tribe are recovering alcoholics. And we've had a long journey getting
and
back
a lot of
to
people
where we
ask
are
me.
now. Yeah.
A lot of people ask me, how did I give it up? And I'm still thinking about the answer to that, because the honest answer is unknown. I don't know.
Right.
I just up and decided one day that I just don't like this anymore.
Yeah. Depends
So
on
I got rid of it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's what I did. I don't like the feeling anymore. So,
Hmm.
and it just made me feel more
Just
fragmented.
left me.
Others
Yeah.
might get a lift from it. I don't know.
Hmm. Yeah. But yeah, I was for more or less 40 years I was an alcoholic. So it's
Yeah.
not an easy admission to make.
Yeah. Exactly.
But you made the admission and you dealt with it,
Yeah.
and you
Yep.
decided to change your now by choosing not to do it
Exactly.
because something
Exactly.
shifted within you. So it's
Yeah.
kind of like polarity, if you know what you don't want, you know what you do want. And that's kind of that's how
The
I see it.
third principle of alchemy. Yes,
Yep.
exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Now that brings us to an interesting question, and that is that Lori, when we are not fully aware yet of how we're connecting or can connect to guides, how is it that our guides and guardian angels are with us and nudge us in certain directions to lead us into making those decisions? So I had told a story about mine. What didn't you have one as well? About when you got nudged to do something for your betterment?
Yeah, I get nudged a lot, but I think it's just that intuitive, you just kind of have that intuitive knowing, but it's difficult to explain how I got there. It's been a process. It's a deep, deep process.
Deep,
But
deep process.
once you're there, you start to see and feel the nudges.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be really good to tell your story about your some of the situations that you've been in and what you've been dealing with recently, because you're the one that's really been ramping up
Yeah.
on all this stuff. You've kind of been playing catch up here.
Yeah. Well, okay. So if you go back to phase 3, where we're talking about once you've started that relationship with your higher self, it seems that you then become more open to accepting the fact that there are other beings within you reflected out, into the angelic realm and other realms that can talk to you and communicate with you if you're open to it. And you don't always recognize it when you see it. So what's been happening to me is I've got a whole team behind me that I never really realized existed. I was aware of one or two. And so when I do tarot card readings or I have messages for friends, they come from Great Mother is one of my guides. Another one is called Mary. And Great Spirit, which is Source itself that I get messages from. But now I have a host of others that are starting to come in. And what's happening is I'm getting, go ahead, Lori, what were you going to say?
Well, it's interesting to me. So you started out and you had certain guides and you were aware of them. And as you're progressing, you start getting more and more. Then someone new comes in, someone else steps up. And that's because the angelic realm is on their path of ascension as well. So as they're helping you to learn and grow, new energies pop in to assist you, and then getting to know those energies and why they're there with you. The guide that I had from the whole time I was growing up till about three and a half years ago are no longer my guides.
Yeah, they're different.
I have a primary archangel that's my guide now.
Yeah.
And then I've got some other archangels that have popped in that I'm beginning to create relationships with and are learning from as well.
Yeah, and they come in. What's happened recently in the past few months is I've had, and I've always had since I started this process, an occasional vision of a past life, a scenario of our character. It was me. I recognize the energy, and I can recognize it in other members of the soul tribe if I know you've been with me on one of my past journeys. So I've had that. But what's been happening lately is a little bit different. And that is that I will get a tune in my head and I can't go to sleep. Now, this tune is not something I've listened to recently on a radio or a TV show. It's not something I've heard ever.
That's the nudge.
or have heard in a long, long time, and it won't stop.
Mm-hmm.
And it drives me insane. So the other night I was talking to Lori, and I'm like, this tune came across, and it was ragtime music, piano music, ragtime. And it's not something I listen to. I think I may have heard it a couple of times in some movies way back when, but it's not something that I know much about.
And it was out of the blue.
Out of the
You
blue.
You were just wondering, why am I getting this
Had a
song
great
in
day,
my head?
had a great week, wasn't stressed about anything.
Yep.
And I just could not get this. While I was talking to Lori, a voice came in my head, and it's me. It's your sister, goof. And I'm like, oh my God, it's Lynn. It's Linny. Michelle knows Lynn. Michelle knows about Lynn. The first time I ever made contact with her after she passed away, because I couldn't sense her presence. I didn't know where she was because she had taken herself out. So that old programming, old programming about taking yourself out was, she's in a bad place because she took herself out. See, that's what I was thinking back then. And Lynn, my guide said she's okay. She's where she needs to be. She's with Source. She's working on some things. Your sister's fine. But it's been, almost 2 years since I thought about her like that.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's something that I held on to, and that was a great deal of resentment for her doing what she did. A lot of anger. But I buried it into one of those compartments somewhere. Just buried it.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't even thinking about it.
Yep.
And she's like trying to get my attention. So
you were kind of resistant, though.
I was resistant to it.
You were a bit resistant at first.
I did
and
not
then
want to
I
talk to
got
her.
nudged.
Uh-huh.
I got nudged
Uh-huh.
to send a song that kind of helped you realize, holy crap, this is really happening.
No, you're talking about Eileen?
Yeah.
I'm talking about Lynn.
Oh,
Her
sorry.
mother, the ragtime music.
Oh, okay, the ragtime. Got it.
So it was Lynn that was coming in.
Mm-hmm.
And so the bottom line is, folks, is there was a lot of forgiveness that had to be done there.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of mending with understanding what was going on with my sister. And now that I'm more educated to soul contracts and things, I can look at it from a different perspective. And I can see that was her journey, and whatever she had to go through is what she had to go through.
Mm-hmm.
And so that immediately releases that any kind of guilt or any kind of emotion of judgment or anything like that. So we were able to reconnect, and she was able to tell me everything was okay. And it was apparently something that was still in my crow. It was still bothering me because I had, at the time when she passed away 3 years ago, not being fully awake, took revenge on the whole family by plastering a bunch of stuff on her Facebook page about how they helped kill her, because they did. And guess what? That was part of their contract.
Right.
Okay. So I immediately went out to her Facebook page to see if I could delete something that I put on there 3 years ago. And it was already gone. So she was letting me know that everything was okay and that I didn't have to feel any kind of guilt or any kind of frustration, because I was with her when she died. But it was the hardest thing I've ever had to go through. It wasn't pleasant like what I went through with my cousin.
Mm-hmm.
This was most unpleasant. Watching your sister pass away in front of you, knowing that she took herself out. It was the hardest thing I ever had to do, because I really just like, ugh. But on the other hand, I was like my sister, because we were very close, So there's a lot of emotions buried over the past 3 years through all that. And it was because of one tune that came into my head from out there.
Which you later recognized as your sister getting your attention.
Music. It was her music that she used to play when I was little.
Yeah, so she could make it right with you. Mm-hmm. See, when they go to the etheric realms, they're working on that on their life review, and they're processing everything, and they want to make things right. And I experienced this with my dad as well. Some crazy things with my father that we didn't know about. And all these truths come out, and then you start dealing with it and working it out.
Yeah. And then 2 nights later, during the day, Lori?
Yeah.
It was during the day.
Mm-hmm.
I got this nudge and it was the Muppets. I was in the other room, and the Muppets were da 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 da. I'm like, oh, stop! And it was just over and over and over. And I hadn't seen the Muppets or heard the Muppets or played around with them or anything in years, and not even when the neighbors' kids weren't really into the Muppets, you know. So why was this tune coming in?
Yeah.
It was the Cookie Monster, you know, on the drums and, you know, or whatever his name is. And it was that song. And I was like, Lori, it's driving me absolutely freaking insane. And then I realized it was my niece. Because you see, my niece took herself out a year and a half. It should have happened sooner because she hung in there longer than we thought she would right after her mom died. They died of the same thing. You see, they overdosed constantly with alcohol and self-medicated drugs, and they ruined their livers and their kidneys. And they helped each other. They were all buying for each other. Okay? They had just given up on life, and they had just became bedridden zombies, pretty much. So with her, though, my problem was, at the time, and I've let go of a lot of it, my problem with her was that you killed your mother. You knew your mother was sick, and you didn't do anything about it. In fact, you took all of her money and put it into more drugs and alcohol. And then you gave it to your sons. And then you gave it to your father. And there was this horrible, horrible codependent thing going on with 5 or 6 people in that household, of which 2 were strangers, weren't even family members, all drugging each other up. So I was just like, how dare you people? And so I wouldn't have anything to do with her. And she was very close to me growing up. I helped raise her. So when this happened to her, I wouldn't go to her. I wouldn't go to see her. I wasn't there for her when she passed. She wanted to see us. She wanted me to come see her. And I'm like, what's the point? I have nothing to say to you. I was a cold bitch. And I put that on myself. I'm a mean person, and it was all for me to learn a lesson and for them to learn a lesson. But I had to go through this again this week, talking to her when she came in, and I said, I'm not ready. Didn't I, Lori? So I'm not going to talk to her. I'm not ready.
Like, nope.
I'm more awake. I know what's going on. I know what I should be seeing is the love in all of our brothers and sisters, including my own family. But I wasn't ready. It was too much too fast. I had just gone through this with Lynn. And now I'm going to go through this with Eileen. You know, I wasn't ready to accept it. But I kept getting the nudge. She wasn't going to take no for an answer. And I was in the car driving out to West Virginia, and it was a beautiful day. The sun was out. There's mountains. And da-da-da-da-da. You know, but Lori, when I told her it was my niece with the Muppets, sends me the very character that my niece was enamored with, which was it Fozzie?
Fozzie. Waka, waka, waka.
Waka, waka. Right.
Yeah,
and I'm like, how did you know that was the one? Because there's lots of Muppets. How would Lori know that that's the one? Because Lori and I are connected.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Because intuitively it came to me. That's why.
That's who it was. I said, oh my God, that's him.
Mm-hmm.
So when I said to her, I'm still not ready, about 7, 8, maybe 10 minutes later,
then
Lori sends me a song with
it was The Doors.
The Doors.
Mm-hmm.
And my niece had done
Riders on the Storm.
Riders on the Storm,
mm-hmm.
which was one of Eileen's favorite songs.
Mm-hmm.
And she wrote her dissertation on Jim Morrison when she was at University of Maryland. She had written
now
a whole
you're
paper on
taking
Jim
notice. Now you're like, what the heck is going on, right?
What?
Mm-hmm.
Are you kidding me? What are the odds?
Don't forget that I just, like, before the show, I sent you that Muppets thing.
Yeah, it's another thing. And you didn't know anything about this.
I didn't know anything about this.
You didn't know anything about this. So the thing is that Lori sends me that, and I'm like, oh, all right. I'll let her in.
Yeah. And she wants to make it right.
Yeah. So that the Morrison song was playing, in the car, and I said, okay. And I just, I'm driving down the road, so you can't close your eyes, but I'm just sitting there and I'm like, all right, Eileen. All right. What is it that you have to say? What is it that you need me to know? Is that you knocking on my door or what? And she's like, hey, Aunt Teresa. That's conversation as if she was in the car with me. I heard the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a
You were
30
open to it.
Yeah, but she could only stay. It was a 35-minute ride, but she could only stay connected for like 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
But she got out a very important message to me, and that was to teach me what the whole dysfunctional thing was about in that family. They were actually a soul family that had reincarnated over the centuries together. And they were a very prestigious, usually in a very prestigious position, usually with a lot of wealth and a lot of money. Never cared about ecology, never cared about the environment, never cared about other people. And so they never realized that the people that they picked on or didn't open up to were suffering because they didn't have, and they had addictions and they had all kinds of problems. So they agreed to come back here into a dysfunctional family environment to learn what it is they experience and go through and what their emotions are. And that was their way of repairing their whatever they thought they needed to repair from their previous lives together as a soul family. And I'm not part of that soul family. They're part of my biological family here in this time, but they're not part of my soul family because she told me no. So they had to go through what they went through, and we apparently were contracted to be witnesses to that, and we learned lessons from that. And the biggest lesson I learned is, wow, there's tons of dysfunctional people out there in dysfunctional families, but I have to realize that's their journey. And that's their lessons that they're learning for whatever reason they're learning. And so I'm able to detach from it now emotionally and look at it from a higher perspective as an observer. As Jules
it's their
always
path
says,
to walk. Yeah, it's not yours. It's
not
theirs,
my path. It's
but
theirs.
you're getting something out of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So had I known then what I know now, would I have been there for my niece? Probably. Because you start to learn, you start looking at it from a more you go from empathy, feeling all the emotions, to compassion and understanding. Right. And so that's what phase 3 of reintegration is really about.
Lucky Stone,
in my opinion.
Right. Lucky Stone says soul families are something I'm trying to understand. So a soul family are souls that you group together with, and you come through lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. You may be your father's daughter in one life. You might be the brother. You could be the wife or husband, but a soul family is more connected than any other situation. And that's because you choose to come back over and over and over to experience each side of it. This might sound funny to people, but I was my father in my past life, my recent past life. I was my father. And in this lifetime, I'm his daughter. And I am the complete and polar opposite of that person I was before. So when you start getting into your past lives and understanding how all that works, you get a better idea of who you are in this life and what you're here to work on. Yeah. So interesting. So that's a soul family thing.
It's also interesting that this might not necessarily be applicable, because not all soul families are necessarily people that are close in every single lifetime. Because, for example, what I've observed, since I've had many different lives in this life, and what I mean by that is all the different countries I've lived in, that's almost like a separate life. But in each of those, you have like that annoying person at the grocery store. Well, you move to a different country, you start going to a particular grocery store, and there's somebody exactly like that. It's just like the movie Moving with Richard Pryor, where he has that annoying neighbor. So he moves to Iowa or Idaho, and he has the neighbor's brother, and he's just as annoying. It also applies to what I call incidental people. Like, for example, I had a doctor, and when I lived in a different country, and her name was Macho. Her last name was Macho. She committed suicide, interestingly enough, using a sewing machine. And my next doctor after that was her name was Mucho. Okay, what are the chances of that? Okay, so macho and mucho. That's got to mean
Interesting.
something. That's got to mean something. So, in other words, that is part of like sort of a wider soul family, not necessarily your immediate family, but you know what I mean?
Okay, so if you understand that you choose your name, you choose where you're going to live, your
Yeah.
economic status, all of that. Let's take Mark Bright, for example. Mark Bright,
Mm-hmm.
last
Sure.
name Bright, conscious
Mm-hmm.
cartooning, bright light, bright.
Yeah. Also, cartooning. That's a
Yep,
shorthand
sis.
form. That's a shorthand form of saying something long. What is
Mhm.
Mark? Mark is the shortest gospel in the Bible, right?
There you go.
Plus, he's got the ark in his name.
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
Because it's
Yeah.
MARC.
See, that's right.
So arc of light. That's
Mhm.
his purpose. Yeah.
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 Isn't that something?
That's
Yeah.
something.
It's something.
It all makes sense. It
Yeah.
really does.
Well,
Even
it
your
really
own
is
name makes sense.
simple. Keeping things simple. Yes, your own name does. Yeah.
Yes.
When you realize that you chose every aspect of what you're going to go through, all the experiences, your family,
Yeah.
all of that, you cannot sit there and be upset with yourself for choosing what you chose. You have to
That's
really
right.
go, you know what? I chose to be in this body at this time in these situations. Maybe I should just embrace this and go
Yeah.
with it and learn something from it instead of fighting myself with it all the time.
Yeah.
Or being angry with myself or judging myself or
Exactly.
know?
Like my first name means they depending on which etymology you accept, it could mean either one who does battle at a distance, or it means the one to whom the forests were given. My middle name, M, that's Maria. Maria in ancient Egyptian means one who is beloved, the beloved one.
Mm-hmm.
So although that's a technically a woman's name, there were many men who had a middle name of Maria, one of whom was Alphonse Maria Mucha. He was a Czech artist, and he's considered the founder of the Art Nouveau movement, and he was jailed by the Nazis for his artworks that glorified and anthropomorphized Slavic history, and he was assassinated or killed by the Nazis.
Wow.
So it's all got that historical baggage.
Yeah.
Everything.
And every previous life. I mean, I've had lives where I've been many. It's like, why is it that I have so many lives where I had to do with spirituality? That was another question I had: is why was I a temple priestess all the way back to early times in Atlantis? A priest in Egypt, a druid priestess, in Ireland. I've had these roles in very spiritual roles, a shaman in American Indian, So why is it that all of a sudden I land in a timeline where I don't have that role? And what I'm doing is because there's different lessons to be learned. And so if you did the same thing over and over and over, what new could you learn? So you I guess we choose to incarnate into a certain family experience.
I've undergone regression hypnosis therapy for
Have you?
past lives.
I've wondered about that. Is it effective?
Well,
did you find it effective?
I found out things that I would not have found out, because like the one life that came to the foray, or that came to my consciousness, was a previous life that I had in Russia, where I was working for Kerensky, who was Minister of the Interior, and I was an avid communist in that life, which, in retribution for the damage that I did in propagating this false ideology of communism, I was forced to incarnate in this body, in this family that was persecuted by the communists, like you wouldn't believe. Because after all, as many of you know, I was born in communist Czechoslovakia, right when the Soviets invaded in 1968. So,
wow.
You know,
So you get the
it all
flip
ties
side.
in. Yeah, I got
Mhm.
the flip side.
Yep.
I suffered under communism.
That's what multiple lives are for, so that you could experience for the growth of your soul.
Yeah,
And then you
that's
just keep acquiring and acquiring, and then
Mhm.
you can come in each life and you can choose to remember,
Mhm.
remember or not, or
That's also why I despise the philosophy of communism, but I do not hate the individual communist.
right.
Because they're just, you could say, deluded people that don't realize the ramifications of their actions.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, and I also, just because I went through the Soviet invasion, I have nothing against Russians. I have nothing against any of the Eastern European countries, none whatsoever. Because I know that none of those people voted to do this to us, none of them. In
Mhm.
fact, they were victims of communism themselves. So it was a dictatorial system that was forced on them, and that's why in this life I'm doing everything I can against that.
Mm-hmm. So that's a social contract.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Now, you see, Doug Stack says, I don't think my brother has a soul, in all honesty, or he was a tortured soul just trying to get somewhere. And that's what I thought about Eileen. And I come to learn that the torture that she put herself through was her contract.
Self-imposed.
Her self-imposed free choice soul contract.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know there's a lot of debate in our own community about what's free choice and what isn't, what's a prison planet, what isn't. I'm just sharing with you my gnosis and my perspective on things. And so having that conversation with Eileen really helped me understand.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that she doesn't
From
have
a whole
soul,
different level.
from a whole different perspective.
Yeah,
And
but
Jojo, you're right. She gave me a gift, Jojo.
Mm-hmm.
She released me from
there,
my contract with her.
That's right.
I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
but there really are people out there that have no soul.
That
There might be.
I believe that is true.
Except that I don't believe that I've
Yeah.
ever met such a person.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Me
I don't
either.
believe I know any such person.
I don't.
But they do
But I
exist,
believe
and
it's possible. Yep.
they do call them NPCs in the
Mhm.
alternative community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It seems like that. Seems like some people just do some things that you just can't understand, and that's another thing I've learned in the past several weeks through this reintegration process. Is, you know how we talk in Wayne's all the time about. Go ahead, Jules.
Go ahead, Jules.
Go ahead.
Well, I'm just going to tell you my battery's going flat because I was going to do this on Crystal's machine.
Okay.
But also, what if, this is what I've been told while I've been sitting here listening to you, what if the inner child is the higher self?
Yeah.
Excellent question.
Mhm.
Excellent.
Wow.
Because I just, I kept
Because
getting, that's
the
where
part
I've
of you
been
that's
sitting.
learning. That's the part of you that's expanding
learning,
and growing. Yeah, makes total sense to me.
And since the other realm doesn't think of time linearly,
because that's why we're upside down and inside out. Everything's been inverted, and that's what I've been just sitting here, and that's just what I got right from the start. And I thought, well, I'll just wait till I'm about to leave because my battery's about to go rather low.
Well,
so
all aspects of self, you know.
Yep.
All aspects
I know.
of
I've
self are part of
watched
the one.
in many. I've watched when Ian was in his accident. I totally watched how I performed.
Yeah.
In that scenario, and his mate keeps saying, "I cannot believe how calm Julianne was when you're all smashed up, and she stayed calm." So, because there was nothing I could do in that moment, you know. I did. I went and put comfrey on to boil to make bone knit, as you would. And you take it into emergency and you say to the nurse, I'm going to give him this to drink.
And she goes, what? You're going to give him what? And you're
anyway, it's been great listening. And
I'm sorry your battery's going out on you.
Yeah, it's okay. It is what it is, you know? it's going with the flow, and I just needed to say that last little bit.
Well, we love
Okay.
you. Thank you.
Thanks, Jules. Love
Right.
you.
Yeah, thank you all for your gifts and talents, and now's the time to step up and share. You've got to share what you've come here to do, because I don't do tech savvy stuff as the girls.
Well, that's why we're sharing. We're like, so much is coming in. We need to share this, share it out.
That's right. Share. That's right.
We need
Sharing
to tell each other
and
more of this stuff,
Yep.
Yeah. Sharing is the thing. And then the more you give, the more you receive back.
That's
true.
true.
And sharing isn't about telling people how to do something or you must do.
No, you're telling your story, how it's
just telling the story. Yep.
This is how I've done it. Yep, that's how I've done it.
Exactly.
Like, not everything that you pair say or the three of you say resonates from my perspective, of course. But, I'm open to hear, because then I can be listening and learning as well. As you listen, you learn. And then it pays sometimes to sit and listen, everybody.
Be the observer.
Yep. That's right. Have fun while the guys. I'll be talking to you tomorrow. Have fun while the guys are fishing. I know you're going to be doing all kinds of good stuff while they're out fishing. You girls.
Yeah, well, I have a lady who I've just opened my home to come and stay because she's homeless, because she was a house sitter. So she's just moved in for the last few days. She's another little Cancerian. She's a number 11.
Yeah.
We rule. We rule.
He's going to 11.
We'll take
so thank you so very much.
Yep.
Thank you, Jules. Love you.
Thank you, Jules.
Thank you.
See ya.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
She's a sweetheart. That was a really good question she asked, because that just makes so much sense. If you look at things as multiple timelines, or you look at things as different parts of the timeline, your child, your higher, it just makes sense, which explains the circular process. Yeah.
It does make sense, because everything else that you acquire in life as you get older from that point when you were a child is just an additional coping mechanism. Every profession that you do, that's just a different way of coping with reality, but you're still that same person that you were when you were 3 or 4.
I'd still like to touch on one thing. I know it's 10:14, but if folks can hang in there with us, this is pretty cool. And that is another thing that's been happening with both Lori and I, is the degree to our spiritual technologies and gifts have increased. So we both channel, but Lori channels more naturally and on a more rapid and regular basis than I do. Mine requires more meditation, but it's becoming easier and easier to connect now that we've done the 3-minute sip of the divine quick connect is actually taking place. So I'm able to do more channeling, and we both have started writing out our channeling, dictating
the automatic writing.
The automatic writing has become a huge part of it.
Yep.
So Lori, do you want to talk about that for a minute in terms of how that's strengthened you, or how that's changed you?
Yes. So when I first started going through this ascension thing, I had this strong desire to just start journaling and writing everything down. And then all of a sudden I would start to write things that were like, wow, kind of way above my pay grade, so to speak. And I would just listen for a word. I just quiet my mind, clear it. I'd get my favorite pen and a nice piece of paper, and I would just, whatever word came into my head, I would write that word down. I wouldn't think about what it was making sense. I would just, write it down, this word, then the next word, then the next word. And then pretty soon I can't write fast enough. And then next thing I know, I get to the end of 2 pages and I read it, and I'm just dumbfounded by the information. Then I realized that I was connecting to my higher self. And then after I did that, I was able to connect to Eric. And that's when my TV turned on and off 4 times one night, because I was in my mind saying, I'm open to all of positive light and I want to communicate. And the moment I did that, this energy popped in, and then it has been almost a daily practice, doing this sort of thing every day. And there's always something, my guides will know something that happened to me during the day or a situation, and we'll discuss it and we'll talk about it. How do you feel about it? You gain so much support and love from them. And they're just so happy that you're communicating and they're able to talk to you and influence you in a way that's helpful to you. And so that was really something. And then, of course, I use the pendulum as well. But there's something physical about the pendulum that I really enjoy doing. And I know when I'm being tricked. I know when I'm tricking myself. I know the discernment. I've made all the mistakes. So that's not an issue anymore. And now it's getting to where I can hear the thoughts in my head, or I'll see something, or like in Mac's Vision Remote, we were in there that one night and I nailed it first time out. So I was like, whoa, more validation, just things that just normally don't happen to people, or you're not sure what it's all about. Just extraordinary things happening. For example, one of the most extraordinary things that I experienced was I was woken in the middle of the night. It was around between 3 and 4 a.m., which is when the divine loves to, mess with you a bit. But I woke up to the feeling of somebody brushing my cheek.
Yeah.
And it was considerable, and it woke me up, and I was stunned, startled by it, because it felt like somebody walked up and just rubbed my cheek like that. So I'm telling Teresa about it the next day, going, you're not going to believe this. This is what happened to me. And of course, you knew something about that, didn't you?
Yeah.
And what was that?
I sent my guide to visit you because you were having an exceptionally difficult day, week. And I asked my guide to look over you, check in on you, make sure you were doing okay, because I was picking up your energy and your energy wasn't good. And I looked over at the clock and I'm like, well, she's sleeping, but it's a restless sleep internally in her subconscious. And so I asked my guide to come to you. And Lori was like, did you visit me, or did you send somebody? And I'm like, well, I sent Mary, or Mother, Great Mother.
Yeah, Great Mother.
Great Mother. And the image that I had in my head was touching Lori's face, saying everything's going to be okay, and tapping her shoulder. You're okay.
It was an amazing feeling. Yeah.
She ended up. What often happens with me and Lori when we're communicating, just so you folks know, is I'll say something, I'll start typing it, she starts saying it or typing it, and the messages go like this, and they're the exact same thing.
See,
they're the exact same thing. So we know that there's validation because it's not like she said something and 5 minutes later said, "Oh yeah." No.
That's the key thing. The key thing here is validation. And you do want that, because you don't want to accept any of these things on faith alone, because if you accept something on faith alone, it could very well be just like a schizophrenic delusion, for want of a better word. It could be a delusion, or it could be your imagination at work, or just a fantasy. But in my case, I've been getting validations and incredible coincidences, or what I call the universe speaking to me through various things that I pick up on. And I pick up on things like numbers, for example.
Yeah.
And for example, the story of my mobile phone. I was asking people, okay, what brand of mobile phone should I get? Yeah. And two different people told me, oh, get a Samsung Galaxy, because I have one and I'm kind of happy with it. So I ordered one online on eBay, a used one. And it turned out that the woman who sold it to me, unbeknownst to me, was the same woman who had rented the same apartment that one of the people recommended it to me beforehand. So that was coincidence number one. Then I go to pay for it, and the validation number, again, the word validation, is 412166, which was my old phone number in a different country about 30 years ago. So that was two different instances of validation that just told me, okay, you're on the right path now. You're on the same path that you were when you were living in that apartment where your phone number was 41214066.
Mhm.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
that's what that told me.
That's crazy. That's cool.
That's just
Mhm.
crazy kind of cool. Yeah.
Crazy cool.
Yeah. Mhm.
Julie mentioned here, and I wanted
Mhm.
to acknowledge this. I really want to find out the past me's. If you want to get into your past lives, and if you're at a point where you're not open enough to pull this energy and figure this out on your own, go to a past life regression therapist, and they'll do a past life regression on you, and then they can help you discover your past lives, and you're going to really get a lot out of it. You'll start realizing why you do some of the things you do, and situations.
Right.
It's quite incredible.
See, I was getting some automatic visions or dreams, and dreams don't always mean what you think they mean.
Right.
So that book from Betty Bethard,
The Dream Book.
The Dream Book by Betty Bethard really helps you separate out. But you'll know a vision. Eventually, you'll know the difference, and especially if you're wide awake when it's happening and you're not asleep.
Usually those visions are something that just pops into your head, and
They
it's
just
not
pop
something
in.
you were thinking about, and you're like, why am I thinking about this? You know? So
And
that's a good indicator.
Practicing remote viewing is a good skill too, because the remote viewing early on with John in Max Vision remote viewing, we would be doing a location or be looking at an object, and I would just start traveling, and I couldn't control it because I wasn't used to it yet. And I'd be like, I don't know where I am, people, but this is where I'm seeing. And John's like, where the hell are you? You know, and so he's like, we're doing an object. And I'm like, I don't care if you're doing an object. I'm seeing a whole freaking scene. And when I go to explain that scene to somebody, there's somebody in the soul tribe that says, oh my God, that was Mars. I was there. I remember you. You know, so you start getting validation when you start sharing what you're seeing. And then you realize I had a past life on Mars.
Yeah, it sounds crazy. It sounds crazy.
It sounds wackadoodle, but seriously.
In my case, it was a hypnotic technique that the person used on me, and it involved like bringing me down in my state, in my vibration to like the alpha level, and she made me try to remember what's the first memory you have from this life. Okay, what's the first memory? What's the earliest memory you can think of? And then taking me beyond that and say, she said, okay, what memories do you remember before that? What happened before that? Do you remember the instance of your birth? You know where you were born. You know the date that you were born. Can you in your mind's eye imagine what happened before that? And I did that. And she guided me through the whole process, and the validation came when I came out of it, and I regurgitated like the details of this past life. She was sitting right next to a bookcase. She pulled out a book on the history of the Russian Revolution, opened it at random to a page, and said, "Read from this paragraph," and that was the past life. It was exactly what I had told her.
Yeah.
So that was the validation that this was not some random, because I had not read that book. I do not own that book. I know very little about the Russian Revolution. I only know, what I learned in Western civilization sophomore year of high school, and that's about it. So, that's it. That's the validation. That means that it's real.
I think my daughter has always been my daughter in every life. It's possible, because I tell you, I've been reincarnated with somebody over and over and over. The same person, the same energy. And it's always a different relationship. Well, sometimes it's the same, but sometimes it's different. So it's possible that you could very well have been in every lifetime with your daughter.
Where was the toothbrush invented? I don't know. It's also strange that they call it a toothbrush and not a teeth brush, right?
Yeah.
So it was probably.
I never thought about that. That's interesting.
In a place where people have only one tooth.
Ooh, Isby says,
ouch.
My first memory was being born. Then I discovered my hand. That is fascinating.
Yeah.
Ooh, it's a hand. What does that do? Isby, that's brilliant.
That's brilliant.
Getting to know your body, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And because we don't recognize those body parts.
No,
because,
like,
for example, for example, I'll show you a body part. This, you know what this is? This is an eye. Because, I'm sorry, the other way. It's a video card.
No.
Okay.
Yeah. Mhm.
So this is an eye. This is your computer's eye. And just as smoking is bad for your eyes, in the case of my video card, it decided to conk out because the fan got clogged with cigarette smoke and it overheated.
Mm.
So
Wow.
you
So
got meaning on more than one level.
the
Yeah.
point that so if you have an opportunity to learn more about clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, any of these claircognizance, and put them into practice on a regular basis.
Mhm.
Every
Test
morning
yourself.
we have a routine
Mhm.
that we've been going through pretty much every morning. Sometimes I'm up before Lori is, and I've done my quick 3-minute. Sometimes I get a download and it becomes a channeling, and I end up writing it out, and then I share it with her later. But we'll get up in the morning and start talking, and then she goes through her process with her guides, and every day, and sometimes we skip a day and give it a break, give it a rest, or we'll pull a card, but we do it to put ourselves into a regular pattern. And once you do that, things just start pouring in and opening you up and rolling in like you wouldn't believe. And you will grow in leaps and bounds. Some of you will grow in leaps and bounds, and then you'll find within yourself, oh, there's other aspects that I need to work on integrating. And that's what happened to me with my family situation.
Mhm.
Was my other sister is going through something physical right now. She was feeling the same way I was about things, and it might be that it can help her repair herself health-wise if once in a while I connect with her and share some of these experiences so that she can not have to feel the same way too. Now, maybe her journey's different and that won't be the case, but she is my sister, so I can at least offer that as something for her to hold on to, because she needs to let go of some of this too, and it could help her heal physically her body,
Yeah.
just as it's helped me heal my body physically. So that's all I'm saying, and I'm not saying you should do that. I'm just saying that that's something I've learned that is
Mhm.
something that I think I'm going to do.
Yep. Definitely.
Mhm.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And
any questions?
I would say that the condition of your physical body is not necessarily as important as people might think. The only thing to keep in mind is that you want to keep your body as pain-free as possible. That's why you generally do want to do things like take vitamins and things like
Quality
that.
of life.
Quality of life. Yeah,
Quality of life. Yeah.
you don't want to burdening your soul,
No.
with things like pain or discomfort or things like that.
Mhm.
So, as it says in the Bible, they can kill the body, but they can't kill the soul.
Yep.
So that's always important to keep in mind. That
It's infinite.
you are your soul. You are not your
That's
body.
right.
That's been
Right.
confirmed
That's
for
right.
me like many, many times.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's important. That's why I don't believe in things like, at least not for myself, I don't believe in things like exercise. I mean, it's exercise enough just doing what I do for a living or used to do for a living. That's pretty much all the exercise I need. But then again, I'm an extraordinarily lazy person.
Oh, I get nudged all the time now by my guides. It's like,
Yeah.
how do you think that's going to change if you don't get up off your butt and do X, Y, and Z? And I'm like, that was the first thing from my mind, and it wouldn't be something that I would think of. It just came out of the blue, and I'm like, oh, that's a nudge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, the most recent one. The RV storage.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Because it's 10:30, and I don't want to keep people, but I just want you guys to know that they're still with us. We got a notice to get off of our storage lot, our boat in our RV. I may have mentioned this last week. I can't remember, but
Yes,
I got. You remember that?
Yep.
Okay, so remember they told me to go look out west.
Mm-hmm.
The message was go west,
and you found one in
and I
West Virginia.
would never. Yeah. Well, there were 3, and the ones east, because he kept insisting going east, filled up, overpriced, not available, not conducive to what we needed in our time frame. All 3 were perfect and best price, and in a perfectly secure location surrounded by mountains and open farmland with other secured lots with them in the middle of a beautiful environment and within less than 7 minutes of the Beltway exit to get on the interstate to go to most of our trips. It's perfect.
Yep.
But I had to
Yep.
go 15 minutes further away from home.
Mhm.
That's like $10
And you would
more.
have never even thought about going there. That happened to me with my location, my new location
for
for
yeah,
my
for the
business.
garage.
Yeah, because I was like, I wasn't even looking at this part of town.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then when I was told about it, nudged and pushed to kind of go there, soon as I drove up, I knew it was it because I'd been seeing it in my mind,
Well,
exactly how it was supposed to be. And
got a
boom,
contract.
there it was. Yeah,
Got
exactly.
a contract.
Mhm.
They actually had 2 spaces. Guess what?
What?
They just happened to be opening up at the end of the month.
Oh, isn't that something?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Isn't that something?
It is. I
You
love
can't
it.
make this stuff up. It's just,
it's true. Yeah.
once you've
Yeah.
connected, folks,
Yep.
you've got that connection and it comes through.
Things
And
start
it
changing.
enhances the quality of your life. Talk
It
about
sure
abundance.
does.
Talk about, because I tell you, a year ago, if that had happened, we both would have been like, what are we going to do?
Yeah, right. And you would have been freaking out, but
Mhm.
you weren't.
Nope. I just was like, okay, go west. Okay.
You listened
all right,
to it
okay,
and you
okay.
trusted it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's the thing.
So now I
Yeah.
understand how manifestation works a little bit better.
Right. Awesome.
I could have been manifesting all this time thinking I wasn't getting anywhere, and I could have been getting somewhere because I wasn't open to hearing the message.
That's it.
Duh.
Mhm.
Get a duh.
Duh. All right.
All right. 7:30.
Okay. On that note,
Yes.
anything else you all want to add to it?
I don't think so. Thanks
No.
for everybody
Mm.
being here. Thanks for all the viewers. Thanks for the new
Yes.
subscribers. Glad you guys
Randy,
are
I'm
enjoying
glad
the
you made it in.
show.
Randy and JoJo.
Mm-hmm.
Very
Thank
glad to
you.
see you.
And of course, Dalibor, always a pleasure to have you on.
Robert.
Teresa,
pleasure to be
love
here.
you.
Hey, Robert.
Mhm.
All right. Thank
Okay.
you. Good night, everyone.
Have
We'll
a
see you
great
next
night.
week.
Peace and
Bye-bye.
love.